Hello and welcome to this AMBA and BGA webinar, Teaching Virtually Doesn't Need to Be Remote, how the Wharton School has rolled out virtual classrooms successfully in association with Barco. I'm Natalia Mankowska, Commercial Liaison and Relations Manager for AMBA and BGA, and I'm looking forward to an hour of really interesting insights. Shortly, I will hand over to our speakers, Simone Hammer, Global Sales and Customer Success Director at Barco, and David Siedell, Senior Director of Instructional Designer and Educational Architects at the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania, to start the conversation. Before I do, some housekeeping. We want the session to be as interactive as possible. So if you have any questions, just add them to the question box for us to answer live. Equally, there will be a few polls throughout the course of the presentation, so we ask you to contribute to those when allowed to do so. If you miss anything, don't worry, because the recording of the slides will be available in post-event comms and on the AMBA and BGA websites within a week. Without further ado, I'd like to pass over to Simone and David.
Thank you, Natalia. Hello, everybody. I'm very pleased to be here today at this webinar together with my special guest, David Siedell from Wharton School. Before starting the conversation and saying hello and letting him actually introduce himself again and also Wharton School and what Wharton School and he are doing on the virtual classroom side, I would like to talk a little bit about where I come from. So I'm, as Natalia said, I'm Barco's global sales and customer success director for the virtual and hybrid classroom platform called WeConnect. Barco is a trusted partner, as we say, but I mean, here are some proof points about. We have about 70% of the Fortune 500 companies, 3,300 employees working at Barco, and more than 80 years of growth. So a company situated in Belgium, not very far from the French border, and with this beautiful headquarter building that you can see here. I'm today reaching you from Paris, France, and with that I hop into what are we talking about? Because we are talking about virtual education, and virtual education, if it is hybrid or virtual education, has challenges, comes with challenges. And if you're here, I guess you also want to know about those and how to overcome then, of course, the challenges. We have stated here or found in conversations with our customers, prospects, with thought leaders in this field, three main big challenges. The first one, as you can see here, is unsuitable technology. And we have really seen over the last couple of years that has, of course, had a very bumpy road actually that we had to take with lockdowns, etc. That technology was really important, has made miracles as well. But of course, long term, you need to have the right technology installed so that you can also get the right outcome. So what Barco are doing is providing users with high value, hybrid and virtual learning experience with purpose-built solutions like WeConnect. It's really, if we say purpose-built, it's collaboration, it's interaction for teaching, for education, specifically for people that may not be able to come to campus. We do support a lot of institutions in their executive education programs, and we will hear about that in a minute. The second big virtual education challenge is really unskilled faculty. So the instructors can teach and train like they are used to. So WeConnect is a hassle-free, intuitive solution that will enhance their natural facilitation skills. This is what WeConnect does. I very often talk about one anecdote that I had talking to a French institution that is that, the difference between normal collaboration software and WeConnect is the chair. And I thought, that's not very technology focused if we come back to the first point. And actually what the person wanted to convey was Oh, you're standing up, you're giving your energy, you're not sitting down in front of maybe sometimes 50, even more students. You teach as if you were in the classroom and you have the people in front of you in the classroom. The third virtual education challenge are really disengaged students. And that's what you can see here. Unfortunately, I hope most of you don't see that too much, but it happens. Specifically, I know about that on the Friday mornings. Disengaged students, which means they are not connected anymore. You know how quickly you can lose people if they are in front of their computers already, sometimes in the classroom or in the auditorium. It's difficult. So what we do is captivate attention, enhance knowledge retention, enable in-depth collaboration, and fostering human connections interactively with WeConnect. And how do we do that? You can see here in this picture on the right side, you see everybody as if they were in the front row. You establish eye contact through specific technology. You wake them up or get them to work and collaborate by launching into ad hoc, actually, polls and quizzes, cold calling people, because you can see if they are paying attention or not, because they are all the time in front of you and are not gone because you're sharing, for instance, content. Very quickly, and then I go into our conversation and what you're really here for, to hear Dave Siedell speak about his experience with virtual classrooms. What is the Barco WeConnect solution made up of? So you have the tile displays for the remote participants role. That's what you can see here in red. And then you have confidence monitors for teacher content at the teacher camera. So you can see what the students can see, the camera that is directed towards the teacher. You can optionally also have a student view, so it's like a confidence monitor, seeing what the students see at the moment, and also the session data, meaning how long the session has lasted, how many raised hands you have, etc. The key equipment number 2 are cameras and the audio assistant. So you can see here we have different cameras, the teacher camera, the perspective cameras. These enable that you can get eye contact with the people, because you've got one perspective camera per tile. And this is making the very unique experience to connect to people rather than looking at somebody somewhere, let's put it in that way. And also in the back, as you can see, a number 3, a room or a bird's eye camera. So this is equipment. If we continue on the equipment, you have touch displays, the auxiliary display, which is an interactive whiteboard that you can see, and where you will interact with the students. And then a control display that you have next to you, where you have the user, the host interface, the user interface, because it is not necessary if you don't want to have an operator next door. And so you have two possibilities. And with that, I think I close down on Barco WeConnect. It's just a common understanding. You can either the host, so the teacher can direct and run the session on their own, or it can be a producer or an operator that can help actually next door, that you can see here, our friendly operator from Belgium here. And with that, now to finish up on that, it's an easy business model. So we have lots of flexibility. You buy credits so that you can run your session, and you have very easy implementation with partners that we work with. And with that, now I go to Dave. Thank you for being here, Dave. I have put here some pictures from Wharton School, from where you come from. Maybe you want to get started and do a great introduction, actually, of yourself, what you're doing, your team. I know your team is really important to you, so I would like to give you the opportunity to do so.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me to this conference. My name is David Siedell. I am the director of the IDEA team at the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania. IDEA is an acronym. It stands for Instructional Designers and Educational Architects and Artisans. And that's really just a fancy way to say we've developed our technology support for faculty teaching as a vertical at the Wharton School, starting with instructional design. When you go to want to design a course to teach, the services we provide, including instructional design, are instructional technology training, uh, copyright clearance and course material gathering, and assessment design. So that's the first step. You then move into the where you teach. So my team is also responsible for the design, development, and support of the construction of physical classrooms and the care and feeding of virtual class environments. And then the teaching support arm also reports to me, as well as video production and specialty learning tools and simulation development and facilitation. So really soup to nuts of everything you need to the act of teaching is developed as a vertical at the Wharton School. So thank you. And I look forward to having this conversation.
Excellent. Thank you, Dave. Thank you for being here. And with that, I would like, Natalia, please could you launch the first poll? Starting off this webinar, asking you, I mean, we will talk about virtual and virtual hybrid classrooms. Are you currently looking to build one or several virtual or hybrid classrooms? Yes, first answer, no, or I'm evaluating our need. I will not wait for the poll to come in, the results to come in, but launch already the first question, and well, not the first question, but I mean, show a couple of pictures of where Dave has started from, right? So maybe you can tell us a little bit more. When did you decide to install a virtual classroom from Barco and why? And then also maybe comment the pictures.
Sure. So the first thing that I would like to say is we did not develop our virtual class environment because of the pandemic. We actually developed it as we were coming out of the pandemic, building on the realization that, yes, our faculty were able to successfully what we called emergency remote teaching, so that they were comfortable enough to harness technology to actually still teach. So that gave us the confidence to say we could do a virtual learning environment. But of course, they had a lot of reservations about something that Simone had put in the slide before, and that was faculty not knowing that their skill, the unskilled faculty implementation. So Simone, if you go to the next slide, it's kind of showing what hardware. The hardware you were looking at were actually pieces of equipment we bought for the pandemic to provide emergency remote hybrid instruction in our classrooms, meaning we put a screen with a camera and Zoom participants were right front and center with the faculty member, and those students sitting 6 feet away, or an 80-person classroom could hold 15 students and everyone else was online. This is how we implemented it. So as we were coming out, we had a dearth of equipment, and Barco was a solution we had been looking at. And it's kind of saying the pieces that are important for the experience. Most of the panels you see here would be those student tiles. So what we built was a 42-person virtual classroom using equipment that we had. Was very effective in teaching executive education, because as executive education, the class sizes were more in range of that 35 participant. The one screen you see at the front and center bottom was that confidence monitor that Simona talked about. That's where the faculty member had the confidence to not, in a classroom, they would look behind them to see what they were projecting. In this, they could look right in front of them and never break eye contact with the students. So that was a really important case to how we got started in this.
Some more pictures here from, and this is, maybe you want to comment, this is where you are today.
Yes, so this is where we are today. So from the early successes of doing executive education on the WeConnect platform and the learning that came to what it would take to bring our faculty up to speed, we developed what we call the WAVE room, and WAVE stands for the Wharton Academic Virtual Environment. In essence, it is a virtual representation of a physical tiered classroom. And to describe it that way, it eliminated many of the pain points that faculty had about learning the technology. They're the experts of their content and they're the masters of their class. So to put them in a position where they didn't have control or they needed help was not something that they were looking forward to. So what we developed was a room based on WeConnect that allowed them to do what they do best: lecture, have interactive conversations, do case studies, call on students, present their material, and have ad hoc content with a writing surface. So from a training standpoint, as long as the faculty knows how to hook up their laptop and it immediately shows on the confidence monitor, they could start talking to the students, point at them, call on them. The students, because of the camera, the perspective view of the students, they know, just like in a physical classroom, when they're being talked to and when they're not being talked to. So think of a Zoom experience or this experience. I'm making eye contact with 100 and some people in a Zoom session. This, I'm making contact with the person I want to make contact with. You don't have to learn how to do that. It's intuitive. One thing Simone didn't mention was perspective audio. So the system is built to have not only stereo audio, but targeted perspective audio, where if I am looking to the left and a student on the right side of this wall, which is 24 feet long, calls on, say, "Excuse me, professor, your eyes follow your ears. So if you hear the sound coming from the right, you turn, you can immediately, you don't think about this. You triangulate, where did that sound come from? And you're within 4 tiles of the person speaking within an instant. And then the blue box that appears around them, you know exactly who is talking to you. You're immediately making eye contact, and then you're off, you're going. And you don't have to think about any of that. So this is what we landed on from a training perspective.
Excellent. Okay. And this was, just as a reminder, this was rolled out when? When did you
this
take
was
this
rolled out in
decision?
November.
What was the trigger?
Sure. So November of 2002 is when we rolled out this room. We had been teaching classes since February of 2001 on the WeConnect platform in executive education. In November of 2002, we rolled out our electives for our MBA course. So we weren't quite ready with our executive MBA program, but we offered a virtual version of some of our electives. It changed the way we thought about how students pace through the program, because with the ability to provide virtual MBA elective programs, we gave the opportunity for those that were doing a semester abroad to still kind of take elective classes that they would otherwise have been not eligible for because they chose a specific track. It allowed us to open an elective pool to our executive MBA programs that, just because of the nature of that program, they don't have access to the whole breadth of the library of classes that we offer. And it allowed our MBAs to, for the first time, have an accelerated track, not necessarily to graduate earlier, we're not quite there yet, but to gain more specific experience in their chosen targeted fields.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So it was really a gradual onboarding from the electives to the full program, and that's really also what we would recommend is start, learn. We will talk about that a little bit as well. It's we were talking offline actually about it. That you will change things, right? I mean, the first room will never be perfect, or things change also in your environment, and you adapt, and that's also, you have that flexibility, thanks to the technology, the partners. I will give just a quick check with Natalia. Do we have the poll results, and are there any questions already?
So we do have the first poll results back. So the question was, are you currently looking to build one or several virtual or hybrid classrooms? And 68% of participated people said yes. Nobody said no. And there was 38% of people saying, I'm evaluating our need.
All right. Okay. Good. Thank you. All right. Good. So then let's move on. So before installing, of course, there's a decision-making process going from what we have seen before to this kind of room, to your wave room, takes some time. And there are, I guess, many people involved with this. At least that's what we see with our customers. How did it work in your institution, and what was your role?
Sure. So our longer term goal was to create a platform for the launching of an executive global virtual MBA program. And that was the first in our tier of business schools here in the US, as well as making sure that faculty recruitment into those programs was as easy as possible. So this, although our solution is very faculty centric, our instructional design aspect is really the voice of the student in this one. So we had the right structure to know that both audiences were being supported at the time. And then from a virtual standpoint, we have a pretty sophisticated physical classroom that does a lot of the decision making for a faculty. So in our physical room, a faculty member can walk in, can log in, or present themselves as available and the person in the room. Immediately, the physical room sets up to the way they want to use it. It'll set the lights to the percentage that they want to set and the ones they want on and off. It'll set the volume level to the way they want. It will drop projection screens to the right set of screens of 3. We have 3 in a classroom. It will then also route the source that they want, whether it be their laptop, wireless sharing technology, kind of click share for Barco or other products, or the resident PC that we offer in the classroom. So their environment is set for them just by them presenting themselves. So that was the first feature we wanted to recreate, was you could walk into a room, plug in your course material platform of choice, and then be productive right away. The second was we have a tiered environment mostly in our classroom. So the idea of our faculty taking the center of a round, whether that be a horseshoe shaped or a tri shape. So they're very used to being the center and executing kind of pivots. And as Simone talked about, the standing up was paramount. The description was, we are not caged tigers, just pacing back and forth. That's how they feel sitting down. The energy comes from standing up and teaching and calling on students and getting that vibe. So that was very important to us. And frankly, not putting all our eggs in one basket. So the solution you see there, although we haven't used the other two because WeConnect is so popular, and that's, I'm not tooting it just because I'm speaking here about the product. Our room, because of the way we did an LED installation, with a push of a button, it could be a 3-screen Zoom room. With another push of a button, we could do front row in Teams by leveraging the resident PC and leveraging the pixel landscape that a 24-foot by 11-foot curved screen could give us. But the windowing that we used to develop a 96-seat or 64-seat solution. So the other one, the last consideration was, we don't want to build a room that's so big that it feels empty if we're not filling it, because that's kind of a lonely experience. So our system allows us to turn off panels as we go in to create a 96-person classroom, a 64-person classroom, or a 42-person classroom, just by turning off the ends and filling the seats in the middle. So they were our design considerations.
All right. Okay. Coming back still to the decision-making process. So you said it's really faculty-driven, instructional design-driven. And at the end, who has taken the decision?
At the end, there's an expression in in my team that we don't say no, money says no. And money did not say no to this, but it said prove it. So the early pictures that you saw, building a solution with our products and the Barco We Connect system showed that we hit those marks. And then the decision to invest in a much larger dedicated space. Space is a premium for us. We just can't whip up another building. We actually took a program office in our education building and converted it into this so that the faculty didn't have to travel far to teach. They just come down from their offices in the academic building and teach in that. So the decision was we proved it would work. And then the decision to build this room was an investment decision to institutionalize virtual learning on campus.
Mm-hmm. So would you say, Dave, that trying it out at a minor scale, you know, with your own equipment, without doing the whole investment, was key for faculty and to get enthusiastic about it and to say yes, to give the green light?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
And I will point out there was a picture you showed of an orange box, and that orange box is WeConnect. Right, it is the hardware side of WeConnect. Right there, in the bottom right. That is the hardware side of WeConnect. Those same boxes that drove those temporary screens on wheels and those USB cameras on sticks are the same exact pieces of hardware that run that LED wall with the production lights and the audio. We didn't have to change our setup, and actually we didn't add any functionality into that space. We had an interactive whiteboard in that temporary room. We had a lectern that had a wireless mic as well as a room audio. We had a confidence monitor. We could use all the features of WeConnect, like polling and breakout rooms and highlighting students and guest speakers. That room and the big room, there's no functionality difference. There's just a level of intentionality difference.
Okay, excellent. All right, I will just, before launching the second poll, let me just launch the second poll, and then I will give a little bit time if there are already any questions coming in to answer those. Second poll, poll number 2. How long do you think does it take to install a virtual classroom? Like what you have seen? 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year? Maybe 1 hour. I didn't put that in. Well, so please answer poll question number 2, and asking at the same time, Natalia, do we have any questions from the audience so far?
You're muted, Natalia.
Apologies. We do have a question. First question, how many rooms does Wharton have currently in production, and are all rooms of this caliber?
Sure. So we have 3 rooms in production. 2 are of this ilk, meaning 96 participant curved wall screens. The two that we have there, one is a production space, which allows for a larger stage, a production booth, and a much higher level of control of the cameras, as well as remote content capability and interpretation services. So that line of sight was really important with isolated audio so that we could do interpretation services. So one of the rooms has a larger studio and all of that. The other one is a much more intimate experience, still with the 96-person wall, that is built for you and your TA to operate a class. That really doesn't have any technical support other than the pre-check. So once the pre-check for the space is completed, and that's completed an hour before, the morning of, the night before, then it is you and your TA or you by yourself teaching your cohort. So we have 2 in this ilk, and then we also have a 3rd room that supports our executive education overflow when we have 3 classes going at the same time. That incidentally is the first picture you saw with the temporary screens and all of that. we have a very nice backdrop and a very nice writing surface for the faculty. But what they're looking at is really a prayer room that has been reconverted into those screens and probably beverage service behind it and and all of that. So the third room isn't as fancy, but the students really would never know that because what they see on camera is.
Excellent. Natalia, any other question, or was that it for now?
Do you have any hybrid classes, both students attending physical and virtually at the same time?
We do. In our executive education space, we have hybrid classes. That is, we purposefully don't have hybrid because right now the feeling is we have a virtual path and the value of the MBA and the undergrad. So we have a 4-year undergrad as well at the Wharton School. The value of the networking that can occur in the physical classroom and with the physical experience, we purposefully don't offer hybrid in our MBA program, but that's a decision at the school level. But at the executive education level, there's just practical considerations. We have a training center, so we have hotel rooms and beds to fill, and we do mostly live events there. We do asynchronous virtual in our executive education, but in hybrid we do. We do not use WeConnect currently for our hybrid solution, but all the considerations that we have of being able to have both audiences talk to each other, collaborate together with equity, and have a faculty experience where they're not turning, they're not in the round, so that we can still provide an experience for them where all the students are in front of them. It's difficult. And I mentioned the parity part, and why we don't use WeConnect yet is because there are so many features in WeConnect to bring out conversation with the virtual student, the polling, the breakout sessions, that we can't recreate some of those features in our hybrid world. So we do base level accommodation. We use WebEx, and we also use Zoom in our hybrid space, depending on the client.
Thank you very much. And Paul, to answer that back as well, how long do you think does it take to install a virtual classroom? 21% of participants said 1 day, 38% said 1 week, 24% said 1 month, and 29% said 1 year.
Okay, so it's very split out. A lot of different opinions here. I turn it back to you, Dave. How long did it take to install one room? You mentioned that you had 3 rooms. Maybe you can also talk about the journey to get from 1 room to the 3 rooms. So
Sure.
open to you.
So the question was install. So it took about a month to build our first room. And most of that time was getting the teaching function right, not the AV part right. That a lot of that came down to balancing audio to make sure that the student to faculty, the student to student, and the natural, I am just in the room talking, maybe I'll wear a lapel mic, but that's not ours. That's not how our physical classrooms are built. So we had to get the audio right. That took about a month. I would say the other part of the teaching side was, how high should the screens be? Do we have the right writing surface? Should the writing surface be on camera? So in that month, we also said we need another camera, which means we need another Nook. That's all you need is another orange box, and you give it a purpose. This camera is going to be on the board. This camera is going to be behind. We didn't start with bird's eye, but our early testing said you really should have a bird's eye view. People get a lot more comfortable if they know what you're seeing. We turned that off when we use polling and quizzing, because obviously the way you saw in that picture, the answers are on your face, that we would spoil the surprise if we turned that camera on during those sessions. But so it took about a month. I said that's on the install. There's also the instill. And that took quite a bit longer. And that was the confidence that the faculty would have that, one, all this technology that's in front of me, is it all going to work? So that just takes repetition and, to build confidence. And then there was the, can I do the special thing I do in my class? Can I do that in this environment? During the pandemic, we do a lot of simulation, a lot of hands-on. Business schools altogether are unique in a lot of the technology ecosystems, is that group-based activities are very important in business schools. We wish they were more important in learning management platforms like Canvas or those types of Blackboard, because they're for the individual student to faculty relationship. So making sure that we could do our group-based activities was the second instill hurdle we had to get over. Not only simulations, but just talk amongst yourselves. Case studies are a big tool that we use, and you break out into teams and you take pro positions and con positions. So breakout rooms are very important in that experience. Showing that we had designs to leverage that platform, to use that, took about 6 months to get the confidence to sell a program for money on that platform. It took about 6 months, but once we did, it exploded. It was wildly successful, and wildly successful wasn't, hey, we can sell this a lot. It was faculty saying, I will do this again. And we've never had somebody, we've never in the 2 years now, we've never had a faculty member say, I'm not going to do that again. On the contrary, they tell 2 friends and they say, it's not as bad as you think. And our survey responses from students are, it's not better than Zoom, it's just below the in-person experience. So it's a different scale of measurement. That was a huge surprise to us.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. Okay, thank you. So, and then you had one room, the journey to go to the 3 rooms, and the decision that was taken was then quite obvious, right? After these 6
Yes.
months of fine-tuning things. I mean, that's also what I wanted to say before is start and learn and come back actually to faculty, fine-tune things. There might be things that you want to change. I think I've never seen one installation that was used over months and years without changing anything, right? You shouldn't change one day after the other, but I mean, your environment changes, lots of things can change, and you have to adapt. And in the beginning, this adaptation, so that you can get, as you say, the trust, the confidence from the faculty members that will be in the room is really crucial, right? Okay, so then let's move on actually to another really interesting topic. It's about customization. I've got a couple of other pictures, and this leads us to poll number 3. How do you feel about software customization? Because very often we see institutions that say, oh, we need to customize because we are so special. And of course, every institution is different. But do you need to customize the software? Do you think it's absolutely necessary to personalize the software, to customize the software? You never really should do it. It becomes too complex, or you don't know. Maybe you don't have an opinion right now. Do you want to know more about that? So I invite you to answer poll number 3. I open it up also for Natalia. Maybe there are also questions about rollout, about what Dave has talked about, and getting buy-in from faculty and the confidence, as he mentioned. Is there anything coming in?
Yes, we have quite a few questions, actually.
Cool.
So how do you create classroom discussions as well as assess it?
Formal assessment, that's part of the instructional design process, the design assessments that aren't just virtually friendly, but instill confidence that they've achieved a proficiency in the content as well as they didn't cheat, right? So we don't use that platform. We don't use the WeConnect platform for that. Most of the assessment that we do is offline, a lot of papers and writing. We do one-on-one office hours to try to understand assessment and group projects that are happening. Our program also has in-person experiences where, although we encourage not to do assessment during their in-person time because that's the only time they get to see each other in real life, we do on occasion have small assessment opportunities there. The assessment really can come from the polling tool. So you can ask polls as survey questions. Think about poll everywhere, but it's poll everywhere in a really unique way. So not only do you get the general sense or the pulse of the class by which was the most popular answer, the fact that you can see the specific answer of a student changes the way cold calling is thought of. So Simone described cold calling as waking someone up. No, there are introverts and extroverts. There are people, even like a physical class, those that want to be heard, and then those that become a bore because they're the only ones that are ever heard. So being able to respond to polls, and those polls can actually have a right answer, so that can flow into the assessment side. That's more spot assessment. Are people understanding what I'm teaching? If the answer is yes, you move on. If the answer is no, you don't. The polling that's building is so powerful for cold calling to find an outlier and say, why did you feel the answer was C? And where everyone else thought it was A, the student will answer. They're just surprised that they're called on sometimes. You know, it takes a little bit to understand that, oh, they know what I said. And so polling changes when the student realizes that they know the individual response is visible to the faculty member.
And matters, maybe, sorry to interrupt, it matters, it's very personal. And thank you for that example. I mean, I also use it for creating conversations or putting people then into breakout groups, because we might have people that you might have a question that has no wrong or right answer, right? It's just different opinions. And then you put people actually into breakouts depending on the answers that people have given. Or you check if the content has been understood, if it's something that is more on that side. And if you see, okay, nobody got the answer right, or only 1% of my students got the answer right, maybe I have to come back and re-talk about it, right? So there's various purposes actually for that tool. And I just wanted also to mention that if you want to at least have some engagement statistics, knowing how many times actually people have answered polls, or were they sleeping, or how many times they have raised their hand, you can export that after the session. You can instantly see it during the session, but most of our customers use it to export it after the session to see, okay, who has not been really participating, either in the chat, and you're completely right, Dave, people prefer to interact in very different ways, and they can be very chatty, for instance, in breakout rooms, and not at all in front of the full the plenary session. Understanding that, and maybe the next time drawing more attention to some people in the next session. Sorry, I just wanted to complement that.
But I do want to mention one thing that you said about chat. Chat is very important for nonverbal communication in a class. And then there are those that want to speak and those that don't, but they will write in chat. So one of our very first changes to our space, not the permanent space, but the first space, was we added 2 confidence monitors. One was the confidence of your content, and the other one was a screen dedicated to the chat stream, so that you didn't have to go back and go back to the control system or look down at a personal surface to engage in the chat. The chat is at a glance, and we dedicated one whole screen of those 3 screens at the bottom to the chat, because that's how the faculty asked. I want to hear and I want to see what students are saying, and we can do that.
Excellent, thank you. Natalia, more questions.
How hard was it to construct the room to work with multiple platforms like Barco, Zoom, and Teams?
Not very difficult once we had it built. The wall itself is not a Barco product, but the windowing processor is a Barco product, not for anything other than it had the capability that we needed to create different pixel canvases. So what you're seeing in this picture is a pixel canvas divided into 14 different layers. We do eight heads per tile. You know, in a thing, it's just we tied our tiles together and we were able to size the heads so that they were nearly human torso sized. So the head you see in the classroom is about the size of a human head, and that goes a little bit to making a faculty member comfortable that people aren't huge or they're not so small that they can't read the nonverbal trends that everyone shows. If you say something, eyes can roll, there could be nods of agreement or shakes of head of disagreement of what a student says or what the faculty member says. You can see that because you have that size of the torso. But I'm sorry, I lost track of the original question.
Problem. How hard was it to construct the room?
Oh, how hard was it to do the multiple ones? No, so once we had that, then we were able to say, I want 3 huge windows to be able to create 3 inputs. And we use UC Engine from Crestron to provide the Zoom Room functionality to drive 3 large screens on that wall. And then we have another landscape that creates a desktop and its extended desktop experience for those that need to leverage the PC as the platform. Once you have all the audio signals going through this digital sound processor, and you have all the video feeds going through a video processor, sending those signals to the specific NUC in WeConnect, or sending those signals to the UC Engine driving Zoom, or breaking it down to USB and providing that to a PC. That's the trivial part. It's all the signal management to get them into the managers, whether that be the video manager or the sound processor. Once you have that, breaking it into whatever source you need to send it to is actually pretty easy.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? I'm just looking at time as well, but are there any other questions?
Yes. You say that you are not using WeConnect in hybrid due to concerns about equity. Why could an in-person student not use WeConnect, thus having the same capabilities as the remote peers?
Well, they can now. So, but they couldn't when we decided that. WeConnect developed a thing called the companion mode, which was allowing a student to join a session, but not turn on the camera or the sound, or even have the ability to turn on a camera or sound. So think about hybrid with Zoom. If you want students to participate in the chat or you have to almost train them to come in with no camera, no mic, and their volume off. WeConnect has a companion mode that just provides all the interactive tools, chat, polling, hand raising, those types of activities, being able to like other people's, comments. Since it wasn't available when we went down that road, that's where the equity issue came in. We are going to be building new hybrid classrooms that, kind of like what I just said in the last thing, once you have the video and the audio right, where you send it, right now we're sending it to Zoom, but we could just as easily send it to WeConnect NUCs. So we will be refreshing some of our hybrid spaces with WeConnect NUCs now that they have a companion mode as part of their platform.
Maybe also one thing from my side here, what they've said is completely right. So we have been working with institutions that actually said, oh, what you can do in the virtual room, it's not possible for the people who are in the room because it's so great. We are used to what we can see as we have seen the hands raised, the polls answered, the quizzes, the ABCs, but also you have got you can key in complete answers actually that appear on your screen, on your tiles in front of you. So all of that was kind of okay. Suddenly that disappeared because we had people in the room, and the people in the room, of course, they didn't have an A on their forehead, right? So that's where we saw, okay, in the beginning, everybody thought, okay, hybrid experience is more like giving the remote participants the same experience as if they were in the room. But actually, with the virtual experience was in that case better than the physical experience, the in-room experience, and that's where we started to work together with some of the institutions on kind of a fourth dimension. It seems to be a little bit odd what I'm saying, but what do we need so that people we create this learning equity? I think, Dave, you've mentioned it in the beginning. It is so important that nobody feels included and that people start to be connected. And this is, yes, with companion mode. This is, yes, with recent speakers, so that, because one of the most important things is, okay, the software platform is important, but hearing and seeing each other. I think you have all experienced it. The worst thing in the hybrid experience, if it is for a meeting, or even worse in the learning experience, is not to hear a person, or not to see the person who is speaking and spending your time. Your brain is focusing on finding who is speaking, where does it come from, or trying to understand what the person is saying. Really, really important, even more so in the hybrid context. And we were talking, maybe you were thinking of plenary, so one teacher, many students. But we do, of course, also the breakout modes and the hybrid collaboration, which means you can mix up people that are on the tiles, that are remote, together with the people that are in the room. So a lot of development has been done over the last 2 years, I would say, that make hybrid possible. Maybe if that's okay, I move on, because we have 2 more very important topics and I think interesting for the audience. And if there are still questions, I hope we have some time at the end, if that's okay. Do we have the results from the poll?
So I'll just quickly go through it. How do you feel about software customization? 59% said absolutely necessary to personalize the software. 12% said never, it becomes too complex. And 29%, I don't know.
All right. So, Steve, what do you think about software customization? I know you have a strong opinion.
Yeah, sure. So we follow a zero customization philosophy. You can customize the environment to the way that you want, and the WeConnect tool doesn't lock you into only the ecosystem of learning, but not the physical AV ecosystem. You can bring what you like to that. But when it comes to the platform of learning, and this isn't just a lesson learned working with WeConnect. This is a lesson learned in 20 years of doing education technology at the Wharton School. When you ask to branch, especially a third-party product, when you ask to branch their product, you lock yourself into your solution and you turn off the learning that the ecosystem can provide, meaning the companion mode. If we went ahead and started to develop our own solution to engagement of our students and our physical students and our virtual students, we would have stagnated, because we're learning from other clients that are providing feedback to the vendor to develop solutions to problems. And we can be a beneficiary of a solution and also put our energy into helping the vendor develop those solutions. That same energy can't be spent developing a solution with a vendor and then developing our own solution. So this is true for WeConnect. This is true for many things we're using. Canvas. Discussion tools are a big area where people want to software customize. The other thing we do customize, though, that we always look for in a vendor is APIs. And that is, what can we extend the platform with? That's not a customization in my book. That's an extension for our use. A lot of that comes out of the data extension. So we're using visualizations that WeConnect doesn't provide. They provide the data. We're providing the visualization. We're using webhooks to get real time things like the order of hand raises. WeConnect doesn't do hand raises in order, because you can such visualize who raised their hand first that just like a teacher could keep track of that in a regular classroom, they can keep track of it in here. But we want to keep track of it to give a list of who was first. We can then start to score the quality of feedback through AI tools. So we're taking the chat, we're taking responses, we're taking the transcript out of the recording and doing AI based off of the activity of the class to give the faculty member participation scores, something we've developed for the faculty from a grading purpose, but from functionality. We're not going to customize the polling. We're using the polling that we connect. Even though we're a Poll Everywhere customer, we don't use Poll Everywhere here because the value of the integrated poll is much stronger. The board, you have two choices. Use the WeConnect board, which we do because the feature set is good. And it has a couple features like snapshotting your slides so you can annotate. You can set up your boards in graph mode, or, you know, if you have a matrix that you want to do, you can do that really quickly. But we could just as easily take a smart board from any other company and treat it as a camera source instead and use that. So again, that's not customization. That's taking the software and customizing the environment, but not the software.
Thank you so much, Dave, for making that difference, because I think we don't have one environment that is the same as any other around the world. But the software is the same for the reasons that you have mentioned. I don't need to come back to that. With that, I'm looking at time. I launched our last poll because a lot of questions come all the time also about data. And what do you need data for, data from a virtual session for? Is it student engagement evaluation? Is it student evaluation? Or is it session efficiency evaluation? What would you need the data for from a virtual or a hybrid classroom session? And I move on because if I look at time, and if we've got more time at the end, I will come back to questions, Natalia. Question to you, Dave. What do you use the data that you get from WeConnect for? And I've already talked a little bit about data that you can download. I mean, how do you see it, and how do you use the data?
The answer is yes to all three of those boxes. So there's student engagement evaluation. That's more the real-time dashboard, you know, to be able to understand who is engaged and who's not. And it's not just camera. It's, are people responding to the polls? Are people doing chat? Here's a key part about breakout rooms. You never leave the screen. So as a faculty member, even though people go into breakout rooms, it's not a black hole. You can actually see engagement in the faces and in the blue boxes of all the people. So you get a lot of evaluation of student engagement in real time. Student evaluation, that can come afterwards. You get a downloaded spreadsheet about every poll result and if they participated or not, every hand raise and when, any comment they made in the chat, it as a stream of thought and consciousness. So you can hand that to a TA, for example, for scoring. And then session efficiency evaluation, that's surveying the faculty at the end. Were you able, that's a key metric that we've also evaluated in terms of moving forward with the platform. Were you able to get through all your material in this virtual session in a way that you were able to get through it in your physical in-person session? And the answer was, we didn't lose any time because you didn't have to learn how to teach. You walk in and you start teaching. So that the last one, the student, the efficiency evaluation is surveying with our faculty.
Okay, thank you, Dave. What was the outcome of the poll, Natalia?
79% for student engagement evaluation, 50% for student evaluation, and 64% for session efficiency evaluation.
Okay, all right. So I think people are on board with you, Dave. Okay, maybe just a question here. I showed that picture to our participants. What can you see here? Because here you're in a different situation than just a teacher, a faculty member standing in front of the audience. Is it more a panel discussion, or how do you use this setup?
So this is in a non-academic setup.
Okay.
Think of a live studio audience. You know, when people have a discussion, they need energy. And the energy could come from the person across the table from you, but it really is about the audience and the engagement. And just like this, the ability to stop, pause, ask questions, provide value to the audience who has it. So WeConnect has two things. It has the live audience, and for our setup, we can go up to 96 participants live. And then it has a streaming functionality. Sometimes we use the WeConnect functionality for streaming. Sometimes we'll stream out to LinkedIn live using vMix or some other platform. Excuse me. It allows 2 tiers. We have a special audience or a ticketed audience. This is an alumni session. So select alumni that can be part of the action was this setup. And then we had about 1,000 people streaming this on LinkedIn.
Okay, excellent. I don't know, Natalia, if we have any time left, 1 minute for another question. Otherwise, I let you decide, being the timekeeper.
That's all we have time for today, I'm afraid. I'm sorry, but I just wanted to say thank you again to David, to Simone, our partner Barco, for such interesting insight. Thank you all for joining us and for your brilliant questions and interactions. I hope you enjoyed the session as much as I did. But if you missed anything, don't worry, because the recording and slides will be available in post-event comms and on the AMBA and BGA websites within a week. So thank you
And
again.
I would also like to thank AMBA and BGA for hosting this webinar, and of course, and foremost, Dave Siedell from the Wharton School, with whom we have the great pleasure to collaborate, and also advance in the software development with great feedback. So I'm really enjoying that, and thank you for being here and making the time.
Sure, and feel free to email if you'd like. It's there. I'm very passionate about virtual instruction, well, instruction altogether, but this is an exciting new way we can reach a better audience. And we didn't even get into the accessibility stuff. So it opens the world in an accessible way for people to attend the Wharton School.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.